news program coming to you live from Algiers with me, Mariam Zian, to the headlines. Israeli attacks on Gaza have left dozens dead and injured as the World Food Programme warns of an imminent collapse of the enclave's food system. Civil defense reports that hundreds of homes in Zaytoun have been completely destroyed. Coming up next, President Tebboune has appointed Sifi Ghraib as acting Prime Minister, succeeding Nadir Al-Arbawi. During a working session dedicated to the trade sector and mechanisms for regulating the national market, he stressed the need for strict measures to meet citizens' needs. And on the Iranian nuclear fire, the European Troika has activated the mechanism to reimpose UN sanctions on Tehran. Iran denounced the move as unjustified and illegal, while Russia and China are taking action at the Security Council and preparing a draft resolution to extend the nuclear agreement. Hello and welcome back to the details of your nightly news. First, in our file, 64 Palestinians were martyred and others injured since dawn on Thursday as a result of airstrikes carried out by the Zionist occupation forces on various areas across the Gaza Strip. According to medical sources in Gaza hospitals, occupation's warplanes launched air raids targeting several locations in Gaza, while occupation forces opened fire on civilians, leading to the deaths 64 Palestinians and the injury of many others since the early morning hours. World Food Programme Executive Director Cindy McCain warned on Thursday that the Gaza Strip has reached the brink of total collapse. Following a visit to the region, she called for the urgent reactivation of the WFP's distribution network to deliver food aid and prevent the further spread of famine. In a statement, McCain expressed her shock at the scenes of hunger and malnutrition in Gaza, stressing that the situation has become extremely serious. Between bombing and hunger, the people of Gaza face death in search of food they never imagined, that providing a living for their children would become a deadly adventure after they lost their loved ones in the midst of a barbaric war that the occupation insists on prolonging. Osama Ayed is the story.
Zekim, a death trap for the Palestinians in Gaza. One of the most tragic scenes and unprecedented in modern human history is being repeated. Every day, the starving people in Gaza face death at American aid distribution points, hoping to secure a morsel of food to sustain their lives. Thousands of people of all ages awaiting aid have no room left for retreat. They rush toward the aid in Zekim, along the Salahuddin axis, or what is known the Netzarim, even if the end result is previously known: death by sniper fire or drone strike.
I came every morning to get a meal that we rely on, and the meal we get is not enough for anything. I ask the people in charge of aid to increase the aid supply so that we can eat and live. We are a poor people. We are helpless.
Gaza bids farewell to its sons every day. The occupation persists in killing people when they are on the verge of reaching a loaf of bread, after luring them to aid centers without them posing any threat.
2/3 of those here, or more than half of them, don't take food with them and leave. We come here since the morning, and the sun is up. Man, look at my hands. The difference in the color of my hands and my body, the difference is from the sun.
There's nothing on the land of Gaza now but hunger, bombing, and siege, and a people who reject the plan of humiliation in exchange for the food distributed in American so-called aid centers. Their only hope is that the fire of war will be extinguished.
What I've been asking for all along is more access, so I can get in food, get it in its scale, and be able to feed the most vulnerable people that are in Gaza. We're getting a little bit more food in. We're moving in the right direction, let me put it that way, but it's not nearly enough to do what we need to do to make sure that people are not malnourished and not starving.
The occupation deliberately starves the people of Gaza and then kills them in cold blood while they are waiting for aid in an already besieged strip. Despite the starving people knowing in advance that the road is fraught with snipers and bullets, all for a bag of flour, in this time of complicity and betrayal. But they are killed in all cases, whether they try to grab a loaf of bread or they just shelter in a tent.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres stressed the need not to use starvation of civilians in Gaza as a means of war, calling for humanitarian aid to be allowed in without excuses, obstacles, or lies. In a press conference outside the UN Security Council, Guterres said that the levels of death and destruction in the Gaza Strip are unprecedented, and that civilians are once again facing another deadly escalation.
Unbelievably, civilians are facing yet another deadly escalation. Israel's initial steps to military take over Gaza City signals a new and dangerous phase. Expanded military operations in Gaza City will have devastating consequences. Hundreds of thousands of civilians, already exhausted and traumatized, would be forced to flee yet again, plunging families into even deeper peril. This must stop.
The civil defense in the Gaza Strip said that the Israeli occupation has completely destroyed more than 1,500 residential buildings in the El Zaytoun neighborhood, southeast of Gaza City, since the beginning of August. It added that the southern part of El Zaytoun has been leveled to the ground with no building left standing, while the town of Jabalia in the north, the Strip, is facing similar conditions. The media office in Gaza accused the occupation of seeking to forcibly displace the residents of the Strip, of creating a new humanitarian crisis by spreading false claims about vast empty areas in southern Gaza. In a statement issued Thursday, the government media office said that the southern and central governorates are overcrowded, with more than 1.25 million displaced people living in tents without basic necessities. And hundreds of staff members at the office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, sent him a letter urging him to describe the ongoing war in Gaza as genocide. According to Reuters, a letter submitted on Wednesday stated that staff believe the legal criteria to classify the events in Gaza as genocide have been met in the war, which has lasted nearly 2 years. They pointed to the scale, scope, and nature of the documented violations there. The Islamic resistance movement Hamas welcomed the UN Security Council statement opposed only by the US, calling for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire in Gaza. In its statement, the movement described the international position as a significant step forward, reflecting broad consensus in condemning the genocide and starvation war in Gaza.
The UN Security Council statement affirms that using starvation as a weapon is prohibited under international law and exposes the occupation's crimes in Gaza, highlighting the severe humanitarian crisis, especially for children and civilians. This international stance is a significant step, showing broad consensus and condemning genocide of the war of starvation. The U.S. continued refusal to support binding resolutions makes it full partner in the crime. We call on the Security Council to take concrete steps to stop Netanyahu's brutal war and hold the occupation's leaders accountable as war criminals for their crimes against humanity and genocide in Gaza.
Jake Sullivan, former national security advisor under U.S. President Joe Biden, called on Democrats to vote against arms exports to Israel, citing the genocide being carried out in the Gaza Strip. Sullivan said that supporting an arms embargo on Israel is a completely reasonable stance given the situation in Gaza and the failure of ceasefire negotiations. This comes amid escalating measures or escalating massacres by the occupation in several parts of the Strip, along with starvation policy imposed on its population through the blockade. The United Nations Security Council on Thursday extended the mandate of the UN interim force in Lebanon for the last time, setting a timetable for its withdrawal by 2027. According to the UN resolution, the operations in southern Lebanon will end on December 31, 2026. The withdrawal of its 10,800 military and civilian personnel will begin in January 2027 in coordination with the Lebanese government and is to be completed within 1 year. Algeria's permanent representative to the UN, Ammar Benjama, stated that the United Nations interim force in Lebanon has not fulfilled its mandated mission, evidenced by the fact that part of Lebanese territory remain under Israeli occupation. During his intervention in a Security Council session dedicated to discussing the situation in the Middle East on Thursday, Benjama emphasized that peace and stability in the region will remain unattainable without ending the occupation of Arab lands by the Israeli entity.
Created in 1978, UNIFIL was mainly mandated to observe and to confirm Israel's withdrawal from Lebanon, to restore international peace and security, and to assist the Lebanese government in exercising authority over its territory. These objectives remain at the heart of its mission. We must ask, has UNIFIL fulfilled its mandate? Clearly, the answer is no. Lebanese lands remain under Israeli occupation. And we regret that our proposal to include a clear reference to the 1949 General Armistice Agreement was not retained. Without ending Israel's occupation of Arab lands, peace and stability in the region will remain elusive. Israel has yet to respect its commitments under Resolution 1701 and the cessation of hostilities arrangement. Today's resolution opens a new chapter for Lebanon and for the Middle East. Its implementation must be holistic, not selective, addressing all obligations, including those Israel continues to ignore up to now.
And on Thursday, Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune signed a presidential decree ending the duties of Prime Minister Nadir al-Arbawi, according to a statement from the Algerian presidency. The same source added that President Tebboune decided to appoint Sifi Ghayeb as acting Prime Minister to succeed him. Sifi Ghayeb officially assumed his duties as acting Prime Minister, succeeding Nadir al-Arbawi in a ceremony held Thursday evening at the government palace in Algiers. In a statement following his appointment, Ghayeb said the government faces a heavy agenda, pledging to implement President Tebboune's program on the ground and carry out projects that will provide a real boost to national economy.
Today, I had the honor of being entrusted by the President of the Republic with the responsibility of serving as acting head of government. I sincerely thank the President of the Republic for the confidence he has placed in me. I'm fully aware that many tasks are awaiting us, especially with the upcoming social year. We will work diligently and tirelessly to implement the program of the President of the Republic on the ground, God willing. I would like to extend my thanks to the Prime Minister, Mr. Nadir Al-Arbawi, for the efforts he has made at the head of the government. As we have stated before, our motto will be based on mutual consultation. We will engage in dialogue with all stakeholders for the implementation of the President of the Republic's program and the field implementation of all projects, which would undoubtedly provide real added value to national economy.
The Algerian President, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, chaired a meeting Thursday on trade and market regulation, ordering vigilance to ensure basic supplies, strict measures against shortages, and continued action against fraud and speculation. He praised farmers and economic operators for supporting state efforts. The meeting brought together top officials, including Acting Prime Minister Sifir Rayeb, Army Chief of Staff General Saïd Chengriha, senior ministers, the Presidential Communications Advisor, security chiefs, the Governor of the Bank of Algeria, and the head of the Banks Association. Also present were directors of major institutions such as the Algerian Office for Cereals, National Dairy Board, Agrodiv, Naftal, and the Central Pharmacy of Hospitals, Agrolog, and Saidal. The Algerian minister delegate to the Minister of Defense and Chief of Staff of the Army, General Saïd Chengriha, affirmed that Algerian-Indian relations have gained new momentum since the visit of Indian President Draupadi Murmu to Algeria last October. In his remarks during Thursday's meeting with the Chief of Staff of the Indian Army, General Upendra Dwivedi, who is visiting Algeria as the head of a large military delegation, he stressed that Algeria and India are working to chart new prospects and adopt future strategies to enhance bilateral cooperation.
لقد شهدت العلاقات الجزائرية الهندية
Algerian-Indian relations have witnessed new momentum following the recent official visits to Algeria by the President of the Republic of India, Mrs. Draupadi Murmu, in October 2024. The bilateral talks she held with the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, contributed to outlining new prospects and adopting future strategies that would enhance the level of bilateral cooperation and activate all joint mechanisms through the revitalization of the various bilateral committees between the two sides.
Army General Saïd Chengriha stressed in this context that the exchange of visits between the leadership of the Algerian and Indian armies has given renewed momentum to military relations between the two countries.
This dynamic has also been embodied through the exchange of official visits between the leaderships of the two armies, such as the participation of General Anil Chauhan, Chief of Defense Staff of the Indian Armed Forces, in the celebrations marking the 17th anniversary of the outbreak of our glorious liberation revolution, as well as the official visit I paid to your friendly country during the month of February of this year.
More than 20 civilians were killed and over 15 others injured, including women, in an artillery bombardment by the Rapid Support Forces targeting the Central Market area and the Al Walad Al Rif neighborhood in the city of Al Fasher. The Sudanese Doctors Network condemned the massacre, affirming that this crime adds to a series of war crimes and acts of genocide targeting unarmed civilians in Al Fasher for more than a year.
The Sudanese Doctors Network strongly condemns the massacre committed by the Rapid Support Forces as a result of the deliberate artillery shelling of the city of Al Fasher. It affirms that this heinous crime adds to a series of war crimes and acts of genocide targeting unarmed civilians in Al Fasher for over a year amidst a siege and a severe shortage of food, medicine, and essential services. The network also considers the targeting of densely populated residential neighborhoods a flagrant violation of all international and humanitarian laws and a reflection of the widespread abuses carried out by the rapid support forces against civilians who have chosen to remain in their homes and on their land. The Sudanese Doctors Network holds the international community, the UN Security Council, and the African Union fully responsible for their silence and failure to confront these crimes. It calls for immediate action to halt the shelling and lift the siege on Al-Fashir.
France, Britain and Germany, known as the European Troika, on Thursday activated the so-called snapback mechanism, which allows for the reimposition of United Nations sanctions on Iran. A letter addressed to the Security Council, details of which were published by Reuters, confirmed that the three European states triggered the mechanism on Thursday, citing what they described as Tehran's failure to meet its commitments under its nuclear program. And Iran said on Thursday that the European Troika's decision to activate a mechanism allowing the reimposition of UN sanctions against it would undermine its cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. The Foreign Ministry described the move as provocative and unnecessary escalation. Meanwhile, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Tehran would respond appropriately to what he called the illegal and unjustified decision by France, Britain, and Germany, stressing that Iran would act to protect its rights and national interests. And Tehran affirmed that it will not give up its rights under pressure or sanctions imposed by several Western states, which could force it to reconsider its options, though it will continue its diplomatic engagement with the European Troika. A senior Iranian official told Reuters on Thursday that the move by Britain, France and Germany to trigger the process of reimposing all UN sanctions on Iran was illegal and regrettable. And U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Thursday welcomed the European Troika's decision to activate the process of reimposing sanctions on Iran. In a statement, Rubio said the three European states had provided clear evidence that Tehran has failed to meet its nuclear obligations. He added that the United States remains ready for direct engagement with Tehran to reach a peaceful and lasting solution to the Iranian nuclear file. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that the Russian strikes on Kiev demonstrate that Moscow will not be deterred from intimidating Ukraine. In press statements on Thursday, von der Leyen stressed that the attack that occurred on Thursday was the deadliest in the capital since July, noting that the European mission headquarters was damaged in the attack.
I'm outraged by the attack on Kiev, also hitting our EU offices. This was the deadliest drone and missile attack on the capital since July. And as you can see behind me on the screen, it was an attack also on our delegation. I just spoke with our deputy ambassador, and I'm relieved that none of our staff were harmed.
And French Prime Minister François Bayroul's decision to seek a parliamentary confidence vote has sparked outrage and confusion across government, deepening what many call the worst political and economic crisis in France's modern history. Hossam Barkan has the report.
In one of the gravest political and economic crises France has faced in decades, Bayroul's government, with its odd and contradictory alliances, faces what observers describe as the worst of choices. burdened with financial shortfalls and layered crises, from budget deficits and economic decline to weak political leadership, backed by fragile coalitions. Bayrou is striving for a miracle before Parliament to keep his government afloat. Yet, 63% of French citizens, according to the latest poll by IFOP, are calling for its dismissal, the dissolution of Parliament, and new elections. The confusion within Bayrou's government coincides with a deepening political and economic crisis gripping France. Still, it did not prevent the French minister from going against the tide, denying the existence of any financial crisis in the country, even though he acknowledged that France may need IMF intervention to preserve its fiscal balance.
Je ne crois pas à la crise financière parce que
I do not believe there is a financial crisis. The country is rich, the country is growing, the country is well managed, under control. French companies are doing their job and we have no difficulty financing our economy.
Uncertainty has spread beyond Bayrou and his ministers, with the government spokesperson doubting his ability to survive the vote, said just days before mass protests on September 10. The unprecedented skepticism has left both executive and parliament trapped in a decision that could put Emmanuel Macron's future in the Élysée Palace at risk.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for tonight's program. If you missed any part, you can always find everything on our social media platforms shown on the screen. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.